Hey guys, it's Kerry, and in this video we are going to be looking at for loops. So before we get to for loops, let's look at while loops. So loops are actions that repeat until something happens. So a while loop is an action that repeats until a certain condition is met. So one example that we looked at is, well, password is incorrect. Ask for the password. And so the idea is for this while loop, we keep asking them for the password as long as the password is incorrect. But then the second the password is correct, we stop asking them. So this is a while loop, an action that repeats until a certain condition is met or while a certain condition is true. A for loop, on the other hand, is basically an action that repeats a set number of times or applies to a set group of objects. So instead of asking maybe 5 times or 2 times or 20 times, as long as you're getting the password wrong, a for loop requires you to know how many times or a specific set of objects that you're going to be applying that for loop to. So let's see that in action with a couple of examples. So to start off, we're going to look at this numbers list one. So basically the way you construct a for loop is you say for item in numbers. So basically for each number, for each item in this list, and we come up with a recipe that we want to do. So maybe the thing we want to do is we want to print out just that item. Let's see how this looks when we run it. Python 3, drag the file over. So for each item in numbers, print out that item. So it prints out each of the items separately. Let's say we want to do something more interesting. Let's print out each of these squares. So we want to get 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9. So for each item in numbers, instead of printing out the item, print out that item to the second power. So what's going to happen is, well, let's see what happens and then let's describe it. So for item in numbers, print out item squared. So basically what this means is the first time through the for loop, it assigns this word item to the first object. It prints out 1 squared. Now that it's completed the first time through the for loop, it will automatically look at the next item. So the next item is 2. Print out 2 squared. 2 squared is 4. When it's done with this procedure, it will do it for the next item, which is 3, and so on until you reach the last item, which is 20. And 20 squared is 400. So once it reaches the last item, it's done this for each item in the list, and it will stop running the loop automatically. So let's see, you can actually have multiple lines here. So you could say print hello. Let's see how this looks. We're going to have, so basically it will print hello each time through, and then it will print out the number squared. This is not a particularly useful or interesting program. One last thing to show you is if I delete this line and rerun it, it gives us that. This word item here is not a specific word in Python. This word item could be anything you want it to be. So you might say, okay, well, instead of calling this an item, let me just say that each one of these is going to be x. So for x in numbers, print out x squared. So basically, x is a temporary variable name that you're giving each item as you loop through the list. So notice that it gives the exact same thing. You could say for dog in numbers, print out dog squared. I know this makes no sense, but basically what it will say is it will call 1 dog the first time through, and then it'll print out 1 squared. Let's see if that works. So that works, but in general, this would be a very poor idea to do. So you want to give descriptive names. So you might want to say for each number in numbers, print out that number squared. So let's see. That looks a lot better, and it makes a lot more sense. But this word is something that you choose, and it's not necessarily related to this, but oftentimes it's nice to have the unpluralized version of whatever the plural for list was. All right, so let's look at a more interesting example. So before loading up this video, I went to this random website that generates a random shopping list. So I've got my shopping list of 20 items, and I put it right here. So I don't actually know what's on this list because I randomly generated it, but let's say I'm going to the store and I want to buy all of these things. So for a shopping list to look a little better than just a random set of objects like this, I might want to print it out in a formatted way. So here's how I can do that. So let me print out shopping list. And then what I want to do is I want to loop through this list, and for each one of these things, print out that thing with a bullet point. So for item in shopping list, remember item is just a word I'm coming up with here. Print out dash space plus the item. So let's see how this looks, and then let's try to describe what's happening. So Python 3, oh, I gotta actually type it in. Python 3 space, drag over the file, whoop, drag over the file, and then I get shopping list dot dot, and it loops through and says the first time through item is watermelons, so it prints out dash plus item. So one place where this might be useful, I was thinking, would be connecting this back to our HTML unit from the first semester. So I'm going to make a blank HTML file. So let me save this as site.html. So I'm going to rewrite the old version of this. I'm going to generate the basic HTML text using that autocomplete that we talked about. So basically less than H, tab over. I'm going to give it a title of shopping list. And now what I want to do is I want to actually have my shopping list like this appear in my web browser. So to make that happen, let's look back at our shopping list. Thinking about lists in HTML, instead of just putting shopping list like this at the top of our page, a big bold title would look something like H1 and then slash H1, close the header 1. Next up, to define our shopping list, we learned two different kinds of list. We had unordered list, which are bullet points, and ordered list, which were numbered list. So I'm going to actually print out UL to start an unordered list. Then I'm going to list out all the list items, and I'm going to close my unordered list at the bottom using the slash unordered list. Finally, I need to correct this text in between. For each item, I don't want to print out dash that item. I want to print out the HTML formatting, which would be list item plus the item plus close the list item. So let's see how this looks. So I get what looks like HTML code. A couple of things could be improved. I could have tabs at the beginning of all of these. To make a tab, what you can do is you can put /t inside of a string. And what that will do is /t corresponds to make a tab. So let's see how this looks. I rerun this. So now I've got a nice setup for my list. So what I can do is I can take this and I can highlight it from my terminal, copy it, and then stick that into my HTML file right here, save it. And now if I load this website, I've got a shopping list full of those items. So how might this be useful? Well, these items aren't alphabetized. It might be really hard to read these items. So I noticed that Mandarin Orange is lowercase or uppercase. I'm just going to make that lowercase in my original list to emphasize the alphabetizing. Let me look through my original list here. So the advantage to being able to process this list in Python before processing it in HTML is to alphabetize the list. We learned last time that you can use a function called shoppinglist.sort like this. But let's say that before we sort the shopping list, we want to add a couple of other things to the list. We learned that to add something to the list, we do shoppinglist.append, and then we can add whatever we want. So maybe let me add some apples. Let's say I hate kiwis. So shoppinglist.remove. I see kiwi here, so I'm going to remove kiwi. And then I'm going to sort it. So let's see, the benefit to maybe using Python before we use HTML is that we can pre-process this list before we generate the HTML. So here we go. Save it, clear it, run it. So now I'm going to copy and paste this text, go over to my HTML file, delete this. Oop, I deleted too much. I guess I forgot to grab the shopping list header 1, so I'm just going to cover up the list here and paste over that. So let's see how the list looks now. So before the list looked like this, if we refresh that page, that list has been alphabetized. And that's a really nice feature of Python, is that you can pre-process and then generate code for another programming language like this. So nothing is special about our HTML here. If you wanted to add some CSS, you would be totally free to. It's just that the Python code is generating the HTML for us. All right, so I hope this was an interesting example of how Python can mix with HTML and also how for loops work. We're going to work a lot more with for loops in the future. See you guys tomorrow.